Welcome to it, sports fans. Monday the 22nd. Monday the 22nd. It is the end of lockdown for most of us, which feels good. I mean, really good. We are out there living. Congratulations, South Africans. You made it. You made it past Armageddon. And we are now in the 21st century. Joining me today on a different ball game is Woude Muller. Woude, how are you?
Hello, I am good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I am great. I feel good. I feel good. I feel alive on this Monday morning. Yes.
Nice.
What's news in Cape Town?
I don't know. I was out of Cape Town for the weekend. I went to my dad for Father's Day, and I actually had a swim in 11 degrees water.
That's insane.
With a wetsuit.
That is
not
insane.
That crazy.
Wow.
But
Great weekend of
I did
rugby.
probably I did about a kilometer swim, and then I watched some great rugby.
Oh, that's great.
And
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, look, that's good. I'm looking forward to hearing how that rugby went, you know? That's
Well, you got a little bit part of it, I guess, over the weekend when I got a really stupid message from you. And I had to respond with that. Oh, here's the message up. Firstly, obviously, Mbolela had to say, John Dobson said I'm going to stay rugby because of my brain.
Well, he did say that. John Dobson, the Stormers coach, did say, I'm going to save rugby. My idea was great.
You said that. And anyway, I didn't have a very good Super Brew pick this week because I did back the Chiefs, and Mbolela also said, I'm going to have 100% rate, and we had this whole thing. Anyway, I had my reasons for picking the Chiefs. I was very much I love Gatland. I think he's such a great coach, and I really thought that he could turn the Chiefs around and really back them and get them to fire. He didn't. I'm done with them. I'm absolutely done with them. I admit that I was wrong. I am moving on. And like I said in the last one, it's you're trying to always fix the relationship. And you know it's at the end, but you try to fix it and you try to fix it. Eventually it just comes to a point where you just have to walk away. I'm walking away from the Chiefs. I'm done.
That's
I'm done
very brave. Very brave. Oh, wow. Okay. Then I really cannot wait to get to the skip pass today. Let's get to the show today, ladies and gentlemen. So because I'm so humble, as you saw, John Dobson basically said, I'm going to save rugby. That's kept me humble, right? So every Monday or every now and then, what I'll do is I will admit where I am right and where I am wrong. So we'll have where Tinta was right, where Tinta was wrong. We will then get to the skip pass. As you've heard, Woude Muller had a horror show on Super Brew. I got 100%, of course, got all the results right, but let's not get into that now. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then our guest, an old Eds, a Reds legend, a Protea legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil McKenzie, cannot wait to have him on. Welcome to you, folks. Let's get straight into it. So as I said, every Monday, I will try and tell you where I was right, where I was wrong. So it'll be called Where Tinta Was Right, Where Tinta Was Wrong. Can I get some of that music, please? We're going to get into it, folks. Get used to it. Where Tinta was right, where Tinta was wrong. Dave, will you set me up with that music and we will get the show going for today? There it is. Let's get into it, folks. Where I was right. Look, David Luiz had to be let go by Chelsea. Early on, Luiz's mistakes he could cover up for because of injury. If you watched the World Cup in Brazil, you kind of saw those holes. 7-1, Germany beat them. David Luiz at the center of that, and we saw that. That's next to Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva's he's never conceded more than 5 again as a defender. There's only one man to blame. So the injuries have taken their toll. Luiz is a low-grade Rio Ferdinand. Plenty of mistakes in the bag, but once the physicality's gone, he cannot recover any longer. He is an absolute disaster at centre-back. And you saw it again for Arsenal. Where I was right, I said, Chelsea, get him out of there. The physicality's out. Marina agreed with me. They fleeced Arsenal. £8 million later. That is where I was right. Where I was wrong, Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. I said last season, okay, they've peaked, it's done. Klopp, the usual Klopp, 1-2 seasons, it's too high intensity, they can't carry it for a third season. I was dead wrong. This season, they have been the most electrifying team on planet Earth. Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, Gini Wijnaldum, James Milner, Bobby Firmino, Roberto. I mean, it doesn't stop. The best player in the world probably currently, Sadio Mane. They've been unbelievable. I was absolutely wrong. For the first time in 30 years, Merseyside will hold a league trophy. Jurgen Klopp, the Gegenpress, dead on. Mo Salah, and just Bobby Firmino, probably their player of the season. I think he'll get their player of the season, even though Sadio Mane is their best player. They've got Alisson Becker in goal. It is a complete football team right now with a manager and ownership that is in sync with the Merseyside. That is where I was wrong. Where I was right. Can we put the argument to bed now? His first game back at number 10 in the world's toughest tournament, the Super Rugby. Right? Mwanga is the best 10 in the world. He didn't need 5 weeks to come back. He didn't need 2 weeks to come back. Can we put the Barrett thing to bed? We're done now. Mwanga comes back. They score 39. Everything that's good happens through him. The Crusaders are an absolute machine, but without him, it's not the same. Absolutely brilliant at controlling the game. A tremendous tactical kicking game. He is unbelievable with ball in hand. And if you wanted to see the variety of skills, he chips it through. And I think it's Sevu Reece who dots down in the corner. Phenomenal player. In my eyes, for the last 18 months, the best number 10 in world rugby. I was dead right. Put it to bed. Barrett, gadget guy. Right? Beauden Barrett, gadget guy. Your test number 10, All Blacks, settle on it now. There's no need to keep arguing. There's no need to keep mucking about. Mwanga is your guy. First week back, 3 months of COVID-19, no problem. I'm the best in the business. I'll kick it through the polls. Mwanga is the All Black 10. Where I was wrong. I argued with a friend. I told people, I said, Kieran Reid must captain the All Blacks at the World Cup. I was wrong. Kieran Reid's probably been past it for a good 12 months. He was past it 6 months before the World Cup. It's tough to let go of our legends because there is nostalgia. We see them as the animal when they were the apex. He was no longer the apex. Ardie Savea should have been the number 8. Ardie Savea is the world's best number 8. Rarely. Between you and I, it's a little secret. Ardie Savea should have been starting. They should have maybe found another captain. Sam Cane should have been captain then. They should have moved on. Reid had already showed signs last year of slipping in Super Rugby. I was absolutely wrong there. The All Blacks were disheveled. He didn't have the dynamism, right? Usually you know he's going to be helping the 15. He's going to be in the tram scoring tries. Nothing. His defense wasn't heavy. He let the All Blacks down, and he just wasn't there in the big moments. England's loose trio dismantled them. And where we always say Kieran Reid is king, physicality and speed to the point of contact. He was nowhere against England, and he was exposed by 2 men under the age of 23, 2 pit bulls. Kieran Reid, I was wrong. Shouldn't have been at the World Cup. Shouldn't have been in the squad. I was wrong. I love you. You're the best number 8 to ever play rugby, but you shouldn't have been at the squad, and I was wrong. Where I was right, the greatest player, perhaps, the second greatest player ever to play, the greatest captain definitely, and the greatest central midfielder to ever play. Roy Keane went ballistic this weekend. He called out Maguire and he called out somebody else. I've said it since the beginning. He can't play with his feet. David De Gea is so overrated, it is scary to me. He hid behind Vidic and Ferdinand forever. What he is a tremendous shot stopper. When you get exposed though, and the game needs to expand and you need to play with your feet, and now we're starting to see some cracks really, because he's under real pressure now, is even the shot stopping's going. So now he doesn't give you shot stopping and he can't play with his feet. I was right. He's overrated, drastically overrated. And that's not just me. That's Roy Keane saying it. He played with Peter Schmeichel. You can't take it from him. Come on. Drastically overrated. Best keeper in the league in the last 5 years. Do me a favor. I was right all along. The most overrated keeper in the last 10 years that the Premier League's ever seen, David De Gea. Do me a favor. Best keeper in the league. Absolutely shocking against Tottenham. Has been for 18 months now. And now we're starting to see the real De Gea. Roy Keane's seen enough, and quite frankly, I knew it from the beginning. So that's where I was right. Where I was wrong. I was wrong about Rassie Erasmus. I saw Rassie Erasmus as the cocky guy who was at the Cheetah sitting in the stands trying to put up flags for his line-out guys, different color flags, red is this, orange is this, trying to be too smart. I still viewed Rassie as that person. Instead of saying Rassie went overseas and developed as a man, as a coach. And I tell you where Rassie got it right, because I got it wrong on him, was that Rassie did two incredible things. He found his coach, because at that level, the dressing room must manage itself. He found his captain. And then secondly, what Rassie did in South Africa, we live in a dynamic environment. It's not like coaching in England. It's not like coaching in New Zealand, right? Here, you must manage the political side of things because they will interfere with the player's performance as we've seen before. So what Rassie said was, transformation, I'm on board and everybody shall be on board. I did not expect that from Rassie. He got that right. So the political stayed away from the players, and then Rassie could coach and instill a culture into the Springboks, which is something I never thought he would have the maturity to do. I was wrong on Rassie Erasmus, and I am happy to admit that right now. He did an unbelievable job uniting a divided dressing room after the worst coach South Africa has ever had tried to ruin everything. Alistair Coetzee was a dumpster fire. What Rassie Erasmus performed is probably, outside of Tiger Woods' comeback to win a major, is one of the greatest turnarounds in the history of sport. And I was wrong on Rassie Erasmus. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where Tinta was right and where Tinta was wrong. That is where I was right, I was wrong. I was right about Louise, I was right about Mwanga, I was right about De Gea. I was wrong about Liverpool and Klopp. I was wrong, desperately wrong, about Kieran Reid. And I couldn't have been more wrong about Rassie Erasmus. Folks, that's coming from the guy John Dobson said. John Dobson coaches the Stormers. He said, I'm going to save rugby. Hey, that's John Dobson. That's not me. That's John Dobson, the one and only. Very, very humble. Being able to admit where I'll be wrong, and mostly I'm right. So I'll tell you when I'm right. Speaking of Dobson, speaking of rugby, isn't it great to see rugby full stands? Absolutely unbelievable. New Zealand are doing it right. Jacinda Ardern, congratulations to you in New Zealand, and thank you for the entertainment you're giving us. And with that, I will hand you over to the skip pass with Woude Muller.
So we saw two amazing away wins this weekend, actually, and luckily fewer penalties in rugby. The Blues beat the Chiefs in Hamilton for the first time in 9 years, and the Crusaders beat the Hurricanes, which isn't really a surprise. But the poor Chiefs fans. Firstly, the Chiefs lose at home. Secondly, it is their third loss at home, or the third in a row. And they had no beer because there was a cyber attack on Lion Brewery, so they couldn't get their beer at the stadium. And they got wet. These poor people. I mean, it couldn't have gone worse for the Chiefs. The Blues, on the other hand, had their fifth away win and their sixth game in a row. So things are really clicking for the Blues, and they're really playing well, which is quite interesting for me. But if we look at the stats, so I must tell you that I get all my stats from Rugby Pass. So if you do want more stats from them, you can go look there. You can get all the player stats, all the match stats. So this is where I get my stats. Thanks, Dave. I have all the stats up here, but there are some that I'm specifically going to look at, the one with the asterisk. So the possession counted in the Chiefs' favor, which means the Chiefs didn't capitalize on the possession that they had, and they didn't do much. Whereas the Blues had 46%, Chiefs at 54%. Rax won 58% to 42%, again to the Chiefs, and scrums won was pretty much 50-50. Turnovers conceded, 22 to the Chiefs, 14 to the Blues. So that is definitely where the Blues started getting back. But for me, the big thing is also the penalties conceded. The Blues were absolutely nailed in the first half. I think at one stage they had 4 penalties which they conceded in a row. So I think at halftime, Leon McDonald probably just said to them, guys, don't contest at the rack anymore, don't give away any more penalties. And that's where it kind of changed. But I mean, they get 13-9, which again, the Chiefs should have been closer to the Blues if you look at those penalties that they conceded and what they won. Lineouts were shocking this weekend in this game and in the Crusaders Hurricanes game. So that we can definitely rule out or look at something and why they are so bad actually. So from the Chiefs side, they just completely misfire and I don't understand. Like I said before, for me, Gatland is such a good coach and I really thought that he could get this Chiefs side and be even better than they were in the previous season. For some other reasons, they're just not getting to their potential that they should. So that's, I mean, I just don't understand it and I'm done with them. I'm not going to support the Chiefs anymore. I'm not going to back them in my Super Brew anymore because I can't deal with that. On the other hand, the Crusaders Hurricanes game. So the Crusaders won pretty easily. And if you look at their stats, you can probably see exactly why they won. They didn't look rusty at all. They didn't look like they haven't played for months. They were just a machine that just continued and they just immediately clicked right from the start. Everyone knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing and where they were supposed to be. This does not look like a team who had a bye last week where all the other teams were already playing and who've been off for months. It was just incredible to see. Full-time score 39-25 to the Crusaders. Again, the possession was on the Hurricanes side. So the Hurricanes should have done a bit more with that. Penalties conceded is 15-12. The Crusaders conceded more penalties. And in that first half, you could see that they really struggled with the discipline in the first half. The moment that they started paying a little bit more attention to that, things got a lot better. And that's the only thing that kept the Hurricanes in the game. They literally just creeped a little bit closer and closer. The moment that the Crusaders sorted that out, they ran away with the game. Lineouts on both teams, they both lost 4 lineouts in the match, which is a bit shocking. And you really would think that that would be better at that level of rugby. And with the Crusaders, you would think that they would dominate at the scrums, but the Hurricanes actually won 60% of the scrums. The Crusaders only 40% of that. You would think with people like Joe Moody and Cody Taylor in your team, you would dominate in the scrums. The Hurricanes doesn't have big names on their side. So that was quite an interesting stat for me. So what do you think of these stats and these games, Little?
So 2 things. On the first game with the Chiefs, I think it's stupid that they don't play McKenzie at 10 now. It's like he's the best player. In modern day rugby's changed. Forget the counter-attacking thing. You can play anybody at the back. Get the ball in McKenzie's hands. He is a playmaker, and he's a genuine number 10, actually. This notion that him and Barrett, because I think there's a confusion. People think him and Barrett are the same player. No. Damian McKenzie is actually a playmaker with ball in hand. He's not just a gadget guy like Barrett. He can actually ignite a backline and he doesn't just run at the line. Number 1. So that's the Chiefs' problem. I don't know why they play him at 15. Put the ball in his hands. With the Crusaders, I said it last week. They're the best coach side. I believe they're the best team in world rugby. So forget the All Blacks. The Crusaders are the best team in world rugby because they're the best coached team in world rugby. So Robertson is the next level. Right? He's ready to be the All Black coach right now. And for me, I'm not surprised that they didn't have like mass penalties because they're disciplined. They're so well coached. They trust the man next to them and everybody understands what they must do or there's consequences. That's what great coaching does. And you can see it. Less of the ball, right? Less possession, less scrums. But what you do is when you have the ball in hand, everybody knows where they have to be on every phase. They're the best team in world rugby. So I'm not shocked.
No, well, actually, they did concede a lot of penalties in the first half, so they're disciplined, but it was obviously just getting used to the new way of them doing what they're doing and the new refereeing around the breakdown. So they conceded a lot of penalties in the first half. Second half was much better, so then the discipline came back, and yes, then I will give that to them. First half, not so much, but definitely the Crusaders I've said this before, the Crusaders are the team to beat. It was supposed to be the final of the Super Rugby this past weekend, and I definitely think it would have been a Crusaders win again, 4th year in a row. So for me, there's no doubt about that. So now, looking at the teams, I want to go to my team of the week. So I've picked my 15 best players in each position for the week. You can bring that up for me, Dave. So number one, I picked Armstrong from the Hurricanes. The reason why I picked him, they were more dominant in the scrums, or they didn't get dominated in the scrums. They won 60% of their scrums, and I think he was probably one of the only props that didn't concede a penalty. So for me, all the other ones, you can put Joe Moody in there, but I think Armstrong, he kept the scrums up and he really contested in those scrums. Second, hooker, I'm going for Parsons from the Blues. Now, you would never pick Parsons over any other hooker in New Zealand. So I know this is quite an outside pick, but he was just solid on tackles. I think he got 7 out of 8 tackles, 100% in his lineouts. So the Blues only lost one lineout because he was already off the field. His lineouts were 100%. So he was just absolutely brilliant on hooker. And actually, I think what they said is that he apparently hooked one of the Chiefs' balls in their put-in the scrum, and he actually hooked that ball and turned around in the scrum. So he was brilliant on the day. And the other prop, I put Ale Lotoa. He was pretty solid. Like I said, all the other props conceded quite a lot of penalties. So Armstrong and him were definitely my 2 picks on prop. On the locks, I put Teopolo. I can't pronounce their names. That guy, the captain from the Blues. He was very solid. He had 14 out of 15 tackles. I think he captained the Blues really well. On the other side, I put Aikoi. He conceded no penalties, and he was a top tackler for the Chiefs. I think it was 12 out of 13 tackles. My back 3, I picked Akira Ioni on 6, Sototo at 8, and Harmon at 7. I would have preferred to be able to kind of just pick a position and or just pick a back 3 instead of picking in a specific position. For me, Ioni was definitely the standout player in his position. He's normally an 8, but he had such a huge impact from the side of the scrum, and he made all his tackles. He was really great in that position. On the other side, or the other flank, up his Harmon, I would have preferred to probably put Grace Cullen in there. He's just an absolute, Cullen Grace, sorry, in that, he's just such a tackling machine. But I had to pick a 7, so I picked Harmon. And then on 8, I picked Sototo. He had such an incredible game, and I will go through his stats right at the end of this. 9, I picked Sam Knock. Now, you can probably argue for Bryn Hall from the Crusaders or for TJ Pernara from the Hurricanes. But for me, Sam takes it. He distributed the ball really well. And he was also opposite Brad Weber, who I think is an absolutely great player. And I thought Knock did such an incredible job to just get that back line going. 10, no doubt, no contest, Richie Mo'unga. Mbolelo, you said this earlier. He's the best 10 in the world right now. I completely agree with you on that. And if we just look at his stats, he got 19 of the 39 points for the Crusaders this weekend. He had a try, 4 conversions, and 2 penalties. But what I like about him the most is that you never know what you're going to get from him. He's had 8 runs, 10 kicks, 11 passes, and he made 8 out of 10 tackles. So there's such an even spread between what he's actually going to do on the field. You don't know if he's going to run or kick or pass. I mean, it's 8, 10, and 11. So the opposition never knows what they're actually going to get from him. And I think that makes him even better, not just from being a good general and a good control of the game, but he's just brilliant.
He is brilliant.
Yeah. So, I mean, the stats are just says everything. My 11 and 14, I picked Ben Lamb from the Hurricanes and Severis from the Crusaders. Again, I would have preferred to rather put Mark Talia in there because I really think he deserves the spot. But unfortunately, him and Reese play in the same position, the same number. So I had to go with Ben Lamb, but I think Talia really played a great game and he had a great run and he was so good with ball in hand. 12 and 13 for me, they were the most difficult ones to choose because there wasn't actually one midfielder that really had a fantastic game. You could argue for Goodyear, who is probably the best of the day, but he did get a yellow card, and I think that scraps a player when you get a yellow card. That's exactly the same reason why I didn't put Papli in at 7 because he got a yellow card. So, hence that. But you can argue for Ioni, but his defense wasn't good. Mafi's defense was much better than last week. but he had quite a quiet night on attack, and he didn't have ball in hand much, and he got bumped by Avili, so that kind of rules him out. Anton Leonard-Brown was really quiet. So I went with Fayini and with Asso. I think they were the two best ones in the night. They were pretty solid on defense. They were pretty solid in their attack. Nothing spectacular, but they would do. And then Will Jordan from the Crusaders at 15. A lot of people would have argued for Bowden Barrett he had 5 defenders beaten, he had a drop goal, and he had a penalty. But for me, Will Jordan, he had 12 carries, 5 defenders beaten, 94 run meters, 3 clean breaks, 1 try assist. He had 100% tackle rate, and he had 4 offloads. That's what you want from a fullback. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So yes, that is my team that I picked for the week.
Great team. That's a great team. Sevu Reese's try was phenomenal. He is one of the most devastating things I've seen since Rupeni Valdau Mboka on the wing. Honestly, he reminds me of Rupeni and the Flying Joe Rokothoko style, these Fijian guys. And then you go really back, the great Joeli Vederi. He reminds me of that. He's got that low sort of center of gravity, and at full pace, just, devastating. And the power of the man, unbelievable.
So for those of you who didn't watch the game, he scored the try in the first, I think, 57 seconds of the match. So he just really powered along. It was brilliant to see. And then, of course, the Avili bump on Luamapu was amazing for Avili's try right at the end. I thought that was brilliant.
Brutal. Oh, bus is full.
So, my final thing is I picked my player of the week. And you were talking about Adi Sevilla before playing at 8. But this guy, from the Blues, oh my gosh, he is definitely a number 8 to watch for the future. His stats for the weekend were just, he was just so good. Hoskins Sototo, he's young, he's up and coming, can you put those stats up for me, please, Dave? And we can have a look at them, and you can argue with me if you don't think he should have been the player of the weekend, but look at that. 15 out of 16 tackles, 7 runs, 24 run meters, 4 offloads, 1 try, a try assist. He had 4 lineouts, and he had a lineout steal. What more do you want from your A?
That's tough to ask for much. He's done everything that a rugby player who isn't the scrum half or the fly half should do. That's an unbelievable weekend. Wow. Yeah.
So my player of the weekend, definitely him. There's no doubt. You can probably argue, I guess, for Will Jordan, but this guy, and for a number 8, I just think this is incredible. So he's definitely one to watch for us to be in future All Black.
Hoskins Sotutu. They are not struggling, by the way, in the loose forwards are the All Blacks, because not only do they have Adi Surveyor, but there's another Yawani who is a human wrecking ball. Luke Romano came back on the weekend. That's a different story. Forget Sam Cane. I mean, he's the captain, we know, and is a machine.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Depth, buckets and buckets of depth. Love that, Vody. Great team of the week. I thought you picked some pearlers, especially in the front row there. I like that you picked on form, not on reputation.
Yes, that you can expect from me every week.
Ever the diplomat. Woude Muller, that is the skip pass. Very good, Woude. That's nice. I like that. I really, really like that team of the week. There were some I hadn't spotted. I had gone a different direction, but I find it very difficult to argue with any of that team. A great job, Woude Muller. We're going to move over to our guest now. I don't know how to describe him. I have to say, I have to be honest. Before we go to him, I have to be honest. I was very resentful of him because everyone I've ever asked about him say he's the nicest guy ever. What really made me resentful is how handsome he is. So you're not allowed to be both things, right? I don't mind if you're handsome, but then don't be a nice guy because people love him as well. So I was really resentful of this guy, but never heard a bad word about him. Can't wait to speak to him. Catch us in a minute or so. What an honor it is to have our next guest. As I said, I resented him when I was younger, but all you ever hear is great things. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing to you King Edward's School's legend, Old Ed's legend, rugged-faced, handsome as you like, humble as you like, former Protea legend, ladies and gentlemen, Neil McKenzie. How are you, Maccas?
Malelo, how are you going, buddy? That's the nicest welcome I've ever got. Thank you very much.
You deserve it. Listen, Neil, that beard is looking fierce.
For my wife. I had to trim it down. It's been in COVID for a couple of days. So my wife said, "You're going on camera, you're going to have to trim it down." So I've trimmed it down. It was looking a lot bushier. So anyway, I've got to do what the wife says.
No, hey, happy wife, happy life. Hey, you owe me a Jinx, you owe me a coat. Neil, talk to me about a reality that you must face. I want to start off with something very, very serious. What's it like for family dinners when you're the third most famous person in the room? Is that something you want to address? Have you seeked a...
Listen, I've always been there. I don't have to be the piano player. I can always push the piano. I don't have to play it. So I don't mind being just a few of the props and just happy to be a part of the team. I think that's basically the way I see it. But thanks for bringing it up, though.
Yeah, hey, listen, Neil, if you can't bring up people's insecurities on live television, where can you? Really? Neil.
No, definitely not.
It's an honor to have you here, Neil. Talk to me a little bit about where you are with your life at the moment, because you seem to be a very private person, somebody who really has distanced themselves from what was an astonishing international career. Where are you in life at the moment? Is it fatherhood that's keeping you occupied? What's Neil McKenzie up to at the moment outside of cricket?
Well, I obviously retired a couple of years ago, about 2016. Then picked up the job with Cricket South Africa as the batting coach for a couple of years, and then been spending my time the last 2 years with Bangladesh. Obviously took them to the World Cup in England, which was a great experience for the team. Just a family man. I got 3 kids. I got called off the bench quite late, so I've got a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Thought I wasn't going to be playing again. All of a sudden, the coach threw the jersey at me.
It's going to happen.
But 3's busy. So I've been traveling, just doing the white ball of Bangladesh cricket for a while. But obviously, with lockdown, haven't been traveling, so I've had a lot of time to do some video analysis with the guys, and obviously just do a bit of coaching online, which is not really my forte, but you got to do what you got to do in these sort of difficult times.
No, 100%. How did the Bangladesh job come about, Neil? Because we had the pleasure of having you as our coach, and now all of a sudden he's off to Bangladesh. How did that whole process go about?
Well, I was doing sort of after my batting stint with Cricket South Africa, I was doing their sort of their level batting, so looking after all the sort of teams below the Proteas, sort of just the link between the Proteas and the SAA side and that sort of stuff. And then Gary Kirsten sort of approached me to do he knew sort of with the family traveling wise it gets quite difficult. I've been traveling for 20 odd years with a first class career, so I wasn't looking to travel too much. And he just said that they were looking for a batting coach for the World Cup, and I had about a year and a half just to get into it. So he's sort of a guy I really look up to, and trusted his judgment and went to Bangladesh. It's been tough, but it's been rewarding. My first trip was to Florida and the West Indies, which I think that buttered me up a little bit for. I was there for 3 weeks, so that was good. But the rest has been sort of after the World Cup. We've been stuck at home in Bangladesh for a while. So with young kids and school, it's not easy to travel with them. So it's been quite difficult. But as I said, they're lovely people to work with, and I've really enjoyed it.
So in Bangladesh, I mean, there's things in South Africa because as South Africans, we can get into woe is me type of spaces. But what are the things that we take for granted here that just don't exist in Bangladesh? Because Bangladesh seems almost like, with all due respect to them, almost a fantasy land to us. Because to most of us, we just see Bangladesh playing cricket, but we don't really know what is happening in Bangladesh. What's the infrastructure like? So give me some things we take for granted here that really don't exist there, and some of the challenges you're facing.
Well, I think first of all, I've got to give you the positives. I mean, lovely
Sure.
bunch of people, cricket mad, will go out of their way to sort of make you feel at home. The players are very responsive, decent conversations with them, really wanting to learn. And I think that's the biggest thing about the Bangladesh guys. They know they've got this big population. They're underperforming in terms of playing away from home, and they've got some big dreams, big sort of future plans for their players, and obviously they've hired a few of the international coaches. So I've been fortunate enough to have a head coach in Steve Rhodes, first of all, with Courtney Walsh, and now obviously we've got a South African contingent there. We've got Russell Domingo, who's head coach. We've got Ryan Cook, who's fielding coach. We've had Langeveld as bowling coach. There's a lot of South Africans propping up, so they obviously value the South African sort of mantra. I think what I don't miss from Bangladesh is the traffic, the noise, the hooters. It doesn't matter what hotel you're in. The hotels are beautiful, but there's always hooters. You don't get too much quiet time in terms of that. But I think just going anywhere, you drive 10 Ks, it take you an hour and a half. So I think, we sit in the Joburg traffic, or, I know obviously in Cape Town there you've got the N1, then you've got, I think you haven't seen traffic until you've been to Bangladesh.
Oh, wow. All right. Jeez. Yeah, that sounds, that's a whole different thing. And so, I mean, you mentioned a name just now, Gary Kirsten, and I think that's a perfect thing to go into, obviously, your career, Neil. Let's start with Kirsten, because I personally, with all due respect to everybody else who's ever played, I hold him as the best genuine opener this country's ever had. Now, people can argue that, and I just loved his mentality and what he did with the new ball. For you, playing with somebody, I mean, we probably just a little bit younger here. I'm not sure how much you played with him, but what was he like as a player, and what's his character like? Because he seems to be a very different and special type of man.
I think in terms of a teammate, he's probably the ultimate teammate. I think he gives a lot. He gives a lot of care for the guys coming in, especially if you sort of making your debut. He's just an easy go guy where there's no airs and graces about Gary. I think he comes across quite serious, quite a few of the interviews and whatever, but he's a very funny man. We've had a few fines meetings where he sort of operated the music, and he's got a really, really good sense of humor. And he just leads from the front. I think you look at his fitness, you look at, he'll tell you that he's not the most talented cricketer that ever played the game, but, what he did have is a proper brain and a will to sort of do really, really well. He comes from a long line of all his brothers, proper sportsmen, and he'll say that he's like definitely not as talented as any of them, but obviously, you look at the results. There's definitely proof that good guys come to the top, and he's one of the good guys in cricket. I can tell you.
He certainly is. Oh, I can't believe he let Mark Butcher bowl him on 275 around his legs.
I told you, he's such a good guy. He obviously thought that Mark needed a little bit of a helping hand. So yeah,
phenomenal. And let's talk a bit about your career, Neil. Like, was it always the thing for you was I'm a Protea, or was it like, because there's some people we know, it's like straight out of school, okay, this guy's the guy. For you, was it always like, I am going to the top, this is what it's going to be, or I failed in my career? Or was it just one of those things when you became a pro, you kind of knuckled down and settled into it? What was the thinking for you there?
I think I was very fortunate in having a father who obviously, played for South Africa, albeit in the rebel years. I think he was a member of the Mean Machine, so he knew there was a lot of guidance along the way. I used to probably every weekend, there wasn't PlayStations and TV games and all that sort of stuff. So every weekend I was on the side of a sports field, whether it was the rugby field, the hockey field, the cricket field. So it was just sport, all I really knew. So I think from an early age, I knew I wanted to be a sportsman. I really enjoyed my soccer as well. And then, I think left school. I think cricket was probably my preferred sport. So I got a sort of a contract with then Transvaal, and they sort of put me through UJ University. So it all just sort of fell into place in terms of the cricket. I think there was a lot of other options. I'm not saying other options that I would have been a professional sportsman and other people, but there were a few other options. And I think, I sometimes look back at it and I think if you've got one single focus, sometimes it's probably beneficial, but it could be more harmful. So I had a lot of other sort of avenues or other interests.
Hey, take us into those.
Had.
Yeah, let's take us into those. Well, what were those? And unpack it for us. Hey, this is what we're here for. Tell us how great you were at other stuff. Yep.
No. Definitely, definitely wasn't great. Someone would say, listen, cricket was probably the only avenue I had, but in my head, there were a few other avenues. I definitely won't go into them. Mathematician wasn't one of them, I can tell you that.
Hey, you went to KES. You went to KES. I never had that on the list.
No, they teach you to count in boundaries there. They don't keep.
Touche.
I think I must have got that line from Quinton de Kock. I've been hanging around Quinton de Kock too much. He was.
The
KES boys, they don't. The KES boys don't change. I mean, I think I was nearly 36 and he was 18, and he came into the Gauteng or the Lions team. I'd heard about him. Obviously, you keep touch with the guys that are coming through the school. This 18-year-old walks in. We're playing in a night game, and we need about 7 8s and over. And so I go there trying to calm him down. He doesn't look like he needs any calming down. And after I had this long conversation about who we're going to target, whatever, and we can push at the back 5 overs. And I thought, listen, I've tried to explain it exactly how I wanted to get explained if I was a young guy. And he basically looked at me and he said, Neil, just give me the bowling. So I'll just give you the bowling. Anyway, we won with 18. I was 36 at the time. I think I'm about nearly double his age. I think I was 35 or whatever it was. So I did give him the bowling, and we did win with 3 overs to spare. So that's a bit of the arrogance from one of the bigger boys' schools. Yeah.
Got you. Oh man, that is phenomenal. So, and going into your career, Neil, is it something where, as a cricketer, I mean, you batted up the order eventually? I think, for me, I think you found your place. I don't know. Do you feel you opened the batting a little bit late, or were you happy just to be part of the Proteas, or did you think maybe the middle order was the place for you? Because I thought you were stunning up front, and you should have been there earlier.
Yeah, I think I think in the beginning when I first got chosen, I probably got chosen a little bit too young. You sort of don't take your opportunities as you should have. I think your 100 to 50 ratio sort of tells a story. So I think when my first sort of 5-6 years of the Protea setup, I think too many 50s, not enough big hundreds. So tight situations or pressure situations, I'd like to think that I definitely put my hand up. But I think guys that are really, really hungry and guys that sort of, you've got to have that focus. You've got to not just get a good 80. You've got to make a huge play. You've got to get 140, And if you're doing the maths, I know I'm going back to maths, but I think 140 plus 20 and naught and a bad decision here or there, you're still averaging 40, 50, where a good 80 where everyone thinks, geez, he's batted really, really well, and a nice 40 and whatever. Then suddenly you get a bad decision, a good ball, you're averaging sort of just under 40. So I think I learned that a little bit too late in my South African career. And then when I got my chance again, I definitely had learned a lot from those experiences. And I think, I got dropped for whatever reason against Australia, and I came back. you start playing for your place instead of playing for trying to be one of the best batters in South Africa, trying to be the top 10 international batter in the world. So I think if I had to look back on my career, that little phase, I'd like to have changed that and actually got a lot more sort of hunger, street smart, whatever you want to call it, to really cash in when the going was good. And I think I did that towards the end.
Sure.
I don't think I'm an opener. I enjoyed opening, and I think I enjoyed opening with Graham, obviously from Cares. It was a different focus for me. It was just awesome to get back in the South African lineup. I think I'd been on the sidelines for sort of 4 years, not doing well. I don't think I did any better than when I got reselected than I'd done 4 years. It just happened to be a gap, and the only gap was opening. My preferred position is 4, but there's that guy, I don't know his name, Jacques.
Some
Kellis,
Jacques guy.
That's the
he wasn't bad.
So
he wasn't
I'm
bad.
I'm not exactly going to tell him just to step aside and let me come into number 4. And obviously you had a young A.B. de Villiers, you had a young Hashim Amla coming through, you had Graham at the top. It was just like 2 years of phenomenal cricket and 2 years that I really, really enjoyed, that sort of 2008, 2010 period where, travel to England, beat them, travel to Australia, beat them. It was a great team vibe, and 2 years that are definitely sort of on my highlights list.
Sure. And I mean, you were there sort of as a full part of the squad, but when Graham came in, another guy from that Hillborough school that you went to, is when he came in, right? 22, bold, fierce. And, is it because South African society is just so conservative that we weren't ready for such a forceful, to me, he almost was like an Alan Border, right? Almost too forceful to be South African leader. Do you think at the beginning, what was it like to be close to Graham with him being that fierce and 22? I mean, I'd imagine the pushback must have been incredible.
Well, I think he was like, I don't think he was even, judged for a place just yet. So, I mean, like, if you had asked all the guys, like, sort of who was going to be the next captain, in terms of, there was Gary, there was quite a few guys, and I think Gary didn't want it, whatever. And, we all knew Graham's capability in terms of his leadership, but, he hadn't played that much. And all of a sudden, they gave him the leadership. But I think all sort of doubts and all sort of questioning sort of disappeared when you get 2 double hundreds in an England tour, And I think, his biggest sort of strength was leading from the front. And it wasn't a mantra that came through. You go to these big boys' schools, there's sort of a hierarchy. There's that, back in my day, standard 6 or form, whatever. What's it, form 7, whatever it's called now. Grade 8, grade 8. And you sort of know your place, and you sort of, move through the ranks, where this guy came in at 22. And I think maybe with the captaincy, it was like, he just definitely can't stand back for anybody. And in fact, I actually coached him rugby. So I used to coach the backline at Cares. I did the third team. So I coached him a bit of rugby, and he was a tough guy, talented guy, but he wasn't very like this huge outspoken guy and whatever. So definitely there was a transformation after school when he went down to the Cape. I think Eric Simons coached him there, and I think he changed a few of the way he thought. And when he came in, he brought like a freshness, like questioning what was sort of normally happen. Like, if you get 200s, everyone's saying, well, you're going to fail sooner or later. He was like, well, why am I going to fail sooner or later? And he definitely raised the bar and led from the front. I think in terms of captaincy, I don't think he was a great captain up front. I think at 22, he had so many pressures on his shoulders. And when I say a great captain, I'm saying in terms of how good he was at the end. For me, I could probably say, and I joke with him, that he was probably one of the best captains that I've played under. But in the beginning, it wasn't how he turned out in the end. And
so hold on, take me into that, Daniel.
Captain.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to get into that, because it was quite an established dressing room. what were the players saying? I mean, the old heads. Like, is there anybody who was kind of feeling, who's this guy coming to tell me? I've been playing 15 years of first-class cricket. What was it like with the players in the dressing room, established guys, when this upstart from Cares came and tried to have a revolution, really?
Well, I'm not too sure in terms of, I just think the personnel that we had, there'll be a couple of grumblings between a couple of the older guys, whatever. But I think a lot of the guys that we had, we talk about a guy like Gary Kirsten, good team man. You've got guys that sort of fight for the badge. And I think, respect to whoever's going to be captaining. And I think in the beginning, it could have been like, in terms of he hasn't done his dressing room, who's he captain in terms of that, the South African side, he's only just making the side. But I think as soon as he went to England and he hit those double hundreds and the way he handled the press and the way he took the pressure on himself, I think everybody just turned straight away. And, as I said, there's no better person to lead from the front. You've got your big opening batter who goes in there. And you just look at his record on chasing targets. I don't think he'd ever ask you to do something that he wouldn't have done or expected to do himself. So he definitely changed all that in the short period. And obviously as a captain, you want to win series, you want to lead from the front, and he definitely did all that up front.
He certainly did. What do you think's a better innings? I mean, when the team went to Australia, and obviously that phenomenal win where he saved that test for us with the broken hand, which was outrageous, or his doubles in England, what would you put as a better performance?
He went out to bat with a broken hand. I think Bouch and I, we pushed him out the door. He was looking. He was looking at tea, thinking we were going to get bowled out quite early and sort of a couple of hours to go. And we started hanging on more and more and more. And we were sort of joking that he's going to have to bat. And then I can't remember who batted quite a while. And we started getting down to the sort of nitty gritty. And then he sort of just looked at us and like, well, I don't even think he had his whites with him. All of a sudden, there was just a pandemonium. He was running for whites and getting going. And it was unbelievable sort of to be there as a South African side in Australia, where you take a lot of heat. And all of a sudden, sort of, 9 wickets down, and in walks the captain, and everyone thought they'd seen him sitting on the balcony with this big sort of cast on his hand or big sort of bandages on his hand. And you just hear the crowd go absolutely crazy when he opened up those doors was phenomenal and really, really special. And I think for a South African captain, South African side to sort of turn the Aussie audience like that, it was something really, really special. And obviously mentioned those 2 years. I think that probably one of the better innings that I've seen him play is the winning sort of series in England at Edgbaston. Yeah. I think that was the controversial sort of side screen where guys were losing the ball. And when I say guys, I might have done it. Losing the ball out of the hand when Flintoff bowled. It happened twice to Callis, and I started abusing him in the first innings because Jacques, if a ball misbehaves, the genius of Jacques, when the ball misbehaves by a centimetre, he lets you know about it, So
the dramatics with that hit.
No, exactly. It will never miss the middle of the bat because he bats with a barn door, but his body moves and he looks around or whatever. So he came into the change room there at first innings and didn't see the ball. And I've never not seen the ball ever in my life. Even at practice in the dark, never. And I was like, Jacques, I think you're talking rubbish here, but anyway, get on with it. And he didn't have a great series with the bat. Anyway, you don't mess with mother cricket. You don't mess with two things you don't mess with. You don't mess with mother cricket and you don't mess with mother injury. And I messed with mother cricket in the first innings, abusing Jacques about his not seeing the ball. Second innings, going quite nicely with Graham chasing, I think, 200 odd. And next thing, lost the ball. Anyway, looked like an absolute tart. Got LBW, but lost the ball completely. And luckily enough, Graham batted beautifully. Got 100 and I think it was 150 not out. And won us the series there. So that was probably the highlight. And I probably mentioned that because there was a quality fines meeting after that, which
I'm sure
probably puts it all into perspective.
I'm sure, and I've heard you are quite the fines master, famous, of course, at Old Eds for doing your thing. So let me ask you, your best innings ever, just before I let you go. Neil, I really appreciate how much time you've given me tonight. What's your best innings that you feel you've ever played? Or most satisfying? I don't necessarily mean the biggest score. What's the most satisfying pro-tier innings, or maybe innings you've ever played in your life?
Well, I think the Lords saving a test match for your country when everyone had written you off, sort of batting for 2 days, that was quite special, but you don't want to watch the highlights on that. That thing takes 14 days to go through, and there's no highlights. There's only blocking and leaving. So I'll prefer just to put it in the memory bank that I helped save a test match for South Africa. I think your first test match is always a first test match 100. Against New Zealand, Port Elizabeth, we're in a bit of trouble. I'd gone to Sri Lanka, opened the batting there, not in my position, and never seen spin like that in my life. So I really had a tough start to my career, and it was really satisfying to get that first test done. So I'd probably say that.
Sure. Yeah, listen, that's awesome. And so there's two great dynasties that have been, I would say, in the last sort of 15 years of cricket. The Australians, for as long as they did, because they tormented all of us for forever, right from Border right up until probably the end of Ponting. What was it about that team? And if you were to compare them to Graham's team, your guys at the peak of it, who are you taking, and what do you think makes that Australian team so special?
Well, I think you just look at the batting averages through that Australian side. I don't think you can get into that side without a first-class average of nearly 45 plus. So it just tells you that, all those guys, how many hundreds they've got under the belt. So experience, hundreds, all love batting time. I think you just look at Hayden. Hayden reinvented himself, took on this aggressive sort of mantra as a big left-hander. Justin Langer, this sort of kickboxing karate guy, the other end, nuggety, but, would put you bowl him a bad ball, you'd hit him on the head, you bowl him a bad ball, he goes for 4, Ponting, we know how good Ponting was, Steve Waugh, this sort of gutsy, determined guy, Mark Waugh, then you had sort of a carefree sort of number 6, not Michael Bevan,
Damien Martin.
Damien Martin. And I say Damien Martin because he's cost me 2 test hundreds. He ran me out and then he bowled me out when I'd seen everybody else out. So he's a good guy, but that's why I like to forget his name.
Fair enough, yeah.
Ran out on 99. So anyway, moving on, sorry. And then, he was just class. He used to come in, he was a frontline batter as well. So if things hadn't gone well, he'd face the new ball. So he was sort of their get out of jail card. And then you had a guy sort of, Gilchrist coming in at 7. And if there's one place you don't want to see a guy walk in is Gilchrist. That sort of talent, that sort of ability to take the game away from you. As a left-hander, a lot of left-handers, balls are pitching outside leg. Really got to get your angles right. And he just put you under the sword. He'd scored test match 100, striking at 90 or 80. So it really took the game away from you. And then their class 4, spinners. Shane Warne wasn't bad with the
half decent
with the
half
bat.
decent that Warne guy.
Bad, wasn't bad with the ball, and he wasn't bad with his mouth as well. So I just think they had all things covered, and I think a guy like Shane Warne, they would have had to have played an extra bowler if Shane Warne didn't play. So by that I say is like in the first inning, Shane Warne used to hold the innings up. If there was no spin on offer, he'd bowl from one side. Economy rate really, really good, and the fast bowlers could rotate. Your McGrath, your Gillespies, your Lees, your Bickles. So three seamers, they just rotate from one end. And then on the second innings, when it was turning, he was their main threat. So I think he basically covered. He just covered for 2 bowlers. If you look at our dilemma here in our South African setup at the moment, he's an all-rounder. In the past, we've had so many all-rounders to pick from, where now we've got to make the play. Are we going to play 7 batters? Are we going to play sort of 6 batters and 4 quality bowlers? So the dilemma's there. And with them, he was an extra player for them. You didn't need that extra all-rounder. So you could play your Gilchrist at 7, where if he wasn't as good as he was, your Gilchrist would have to come to 6. they would have had a slightly lesser batter sort of bowling option at 7, him at 8, which makes them a little bit more vulnerable than they were. So he was just unbelievable for them, you know.
Hey, I was at the Wanderers when Adam Gilchrist made 256, I think it was. Remember when there was a gold bar? If you hit the gold bar above the wooden stands, and he was hitting it over our heads all day. I know very well how great that man was. And so our South African guys.
Are you joking there?
No, I was there.
Well, don't you remember joking? Do you not know who was bowling when he hit one over that stand?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen. I didn't mean to bring it up.
I thought you were going negative on us here now. It's a Monday night now. You're going negative on us here as well.
Look, like I said, if we can't bring up your insecurities here, Neil, then I don't know where we can do it. Because, listen, Neil, you nearly broke my back. Let me just tell you. You nearly broke my back because I tried to take a catch. I nearly fell over the back. I nearly fell over the back over there because you were bowling ties.
We had so many injuries. Well, we had so many injuries at the moment. I think Boucher was captain because Pollock was injured, and we had like a lot of bowling injuries, and no one was bowling. They're all getting carted everywhere. So anyway, I came on to bowl, and I bowled. I never forget. I bowled 6 overs for 18 runs, and had a little chance, let go. And I said to Boucher, "Look, the ball's not swinging anymore. You better take me off." He says, "No, there's no one else. Everyone's injured." So I bowled 6 overs for 18. I bowled 8 overs for 55. And got on his knee and slogged it. I was saying, "Come, get up," because I thought it was sort of quite low, and he was saying, "Come down." And lucky it missed the gold bar. But that was me bowling. Thanks for bringing that up.
Hey, no, listen. Great to have you on the show. It's all about making our guests feel comfortable. Thanks for nearly making me break my back, by the way, Neil. Listen, Neil, before I let you, before we take some questions, I just want to know from your perspective. So I want to tell you, I'm a purist, right? Like, okay, I like the shorter stuff. I like the ODI stuff, T20. I say I like it. I'm kind of saying that a bit tongue-in-cheek. I'm a Test cricket guy. What is your take on the current state of cricket? Because I cannot handle the fact that to watch a 5 Test match series, the only time I'm going to get to watch it is if England play India and if those 3 play each other, basically, and the Ashes, which I love. But do we have too much ODI and T20 cricket in your mind? Or is Test cricket, must we just forget it now? It's a dead thing. We need to move on, us oldies.
No, definitely. I'm like you. I think there's a space for all the formats, especially having sort of towards my end of my career getting involved with the T20s. And it's a great format. I think it sort of shows your skill case, highlights, what you need to get done. Sort of innovative thinking, but I think the Test match is the ultimate sort of form of the game, and I think the biggest thing what people want and what crowds want is sort of your 2 sort of combative sides going at it for 5 days. Beating a team in 3 days is not good for Test cricket, I think. I think if there's a winner in 3 days and it's an even contest where 200 plays whatever, and there's a big chase at the end or whatever it is. So I think, I think the Test nations, from number 1 to wherever it is, the bottom place, the gap is too big, and that needs to be bridged. People want to see competitive games of Test cricket.
Yeah. So, like, my issue is this, right? Is if we're going to turn it into, because most series now are 1-day series and T20 series with the inconvenience of Test cricket really is how the schedule is made. And my argument is this, is guys often come off T20 series. So let's say the subcontinent teams come here. It's almost never a contest because for them, when they travel here, is they don't play those tour games. So I don't care how good Virat Kohli is. He needs 2 or 3 tour games to adjust from the ball bouncing off a length to his shin to being hip height, off a length. Even a great player like that, the touring games weren't just for fun. You and I understand that they were to make the series competitive so that the guys could adjust to the conditions. If we don't create those conditions, are we not diluting Test cricket? Because Test cricket needs to be taken seriously and you must condition yourself for that. If you come off a T20 series and you're just you think you're going to land here and play 3 Test matches and then play 1 day, that's not a tour, and I think you're cheating the fans. You're never going to see the best version of cricket in my eyes.
No, I think you're dead right. I think with all the cricket that's going on at the moment, it's hard to sort of go and travel and do what you normally used to do. I mean, my first couple of test match tours were 3 months. You go there, you play your tour games before the test matches. There's a 4 or 5 test match tour. So you obviously get to exactly what you're saying in terms of the conditions. I think the biggest thing, T20 cricket, one person can win a game. I think ODI cricket, you need 3 or 4 people that can win a game, like a big sort of cavalier innings or whatever. I think Test cricket, you need all your players to be, you play against Australia or South Africa and you lose, and England, and you lose a session. You're behind in that Test match. And the pressure and the build-up, it's huge, and that's why it's called Test match cricket. But I think, not to take anything away from sort of the bottom leagues, I think we've got to do something for those bottom leagues or the bottom teams to compete. I think Bangladesh compete at home really, really well. They put you under pressure at home. Away from home, especially away from the subcontinent, so they come to South Africa. South Africa are saying, well, we want to show them, teach them a lesson. You leave the wickets green, as you should, and you've got Rabada, Morkel, Co running in at you, sort of knocking your heads off. So they've sort of identified it from the Bangladesh phase, is to sort of start getting their guys. They train on their wickets back home. We talk about the seam bowlers. They'll play their 4-day competition there, where the seam bowlers will bowl 4 overs in the game. They'll bowl the first 4, doesn't swing, and all of a sudden the spinners come on. So they've got a bit of sort of work to do, and they have tried to address that, to say, listen, we've got to make the wickets a little bit more sportier, a little greener, bit more bounce. And that's obviously why they're getting in these foreign and international coaches, is to actually, because they've got these aspirations of coming to South Africa and competing, not coming to South Africa and getting a proper drubbing, or going to Australia or going to sort of New Zealand and really competing there. So the will's there. It's just the know-how and the how to bridge those sides. Because, as I said, you want to go and watch England play Australia. You want to go and watch South Africa play England. You want to go. I mean, New Zealand are playing some good cricket at the moment. We know what Pakistan can do. They haven't been great in South Africa, but where they play in Dubai, they're hard to beat. So you want to go and test your side. And in India, India have definitely raised their game. I think that's what's so sort of enlightening for the subcontinent sides, is to see how India, obviously they've got a lot of financial exposure and financial sort of money to throw around, and to see how they're doing away from home, where 10 years ago, they weren't doing unbelievably well away from home. Here, they pushed us hard. And I think Sri Lanka coming here beating us, although it is, I think it's a once-off. It was very upsetting to see, but for them to be traveling and that belief in that subcontinent, same as us going to the subcontinent, we've got to start winning in the subcontinent, and that's those are the sort of contests you need, and that's what's going to keep Test cricket alive and getting guys to wake up at 2 a.m. to go watch the Test match and not miss a session, because if you have a bad session, you're out of that sort of contest.
Yeah, and so just to finish off on that, do you think it's down to the ICC, or should the unions themselves individually be doing more to support Bangladesh, to support Sri Lanka, to support Pakistan? Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the world game is strong, then we're all in it for the money. Or do you think the ICC actually need to have a stronger hand in ensuring that perhaps it's a facilities thing, maybe an administration thing? I imagine there's a myriad of issues. But do you think it needs to come from the ICC, or do the big unions need to come together and get serious about the international game? Or where do you think the help needs to come from?
Well, I think, what has been bridged is the cricketing community. I think with all these T20 global leagues, you don't suddenly not see a world-class player and then all of a sudden he rocks up on your doorstep and you in awe of him. I think a lot of these guys are mixing with these guys in the change rooms. There's a lot of passing on information. So the Bangladesh Premier League, they will have a lot of guys global T20s, and they might be T20s, but you've got your Kane Williamsons, you've got your proper cricketers out there that are mixing with these guys, and you just hope that they're learning how the practice mantra goes of quality players, and I think so. In that regard, it's definitely the global community's got a lot smaller. I think in terms of the ICC, they've obviously introduced this Test championship, which I think is a good thing. So there's no more sort of dead rubber Test matches. Obviously, that's just been halted by the COVID. So I'm a big avid sort of the Test match format, and I think with this T20, how many positives there've been with the T20. I think the only negative thing about this T20 is that guys sort of might follow the money a little bit, where in the past, if you played for your country, that was your earning, your cap. I mean, that's the most you could have earned. Now, all of a sudden, these T20 leagues, there's a lot of other money to be sort of been earned. And,
sure.
You've got a 34, 35-year-old player who's got 2-3 kids, young kids, and you're saying to him, okay, well, you've got to go to Sri Lanka, you've got to go to New Zealand, you've got to go here, and you're going for 2 months at a time tour, where what you can do? You can go do the CPL, Caribbean Premier League, take your family there for a little 6-week holiday or 5-week holiday and earn double what you're earning. I never point fingers, but these are these things you've got to sort of take into account. You look at the England and Australian. Why is a guy like Broad and Anderson not playing in IPLs? I think they've represented one, but not playing in the ODIs because there's a lot of money. There is sort of a focus, a sort of an understanding that they'll represent the Test side, but they're earning good money. They don't have to. They don't have to go everywhere. They don't have to play all the formats, and so your exposure to the England side, you've got a lot more guys playing where. In South Africa, unfortunately, the rand doesn't go as far as the pound and the dollar and the Aussie dollar. So guys are sort of you're putting them in that position where, is it security, is it country? And that's the individual decision that you have to make, where Australia, you play for Australia Test matches, you're earning good money. You play for England Test matches, you're earning good money. And, if anyone had their idea, I think any quality cricketer, they would be saying, listen, they'd want to be playing Test matches.
Yeah, that's a good point. To follow the money, Neil, you're going to have to come back because we got so much more to cover. But I got a few more. I got a few questions from the social people before I let you go. Hey, Neil McKenzie, you're a legend for coming on here. By the way, great beard. I just want to tell you something. 2 great things tonight: great Wi-Fi and great beard. Dave, what you got for Neil? Neil, what's it like to run yourself out? What's it like to run yourself out on 99 against Australia?
Is Damien Martin on the show? Is he? Did he SMS that in, or did he? Yeah,
his pseudonym is Andrew Robb. Oh, was that just excruciating?
Well, listen, you're playing against the best side in the world. I think at the time I was just happy to we were in a bit of trouble just to get the run. So I don't think it bothered me that much back then. I was just happy to get sort of South African runs against a quality Australian side. But I've woken up a couple of times thinking, why was I worried about Paul Adams running the other end? I sort of slow myself down and so start looking. I'm thinking he's going to throw there, and he spins and he hits one stump my side. And I was thinking, geez, if I'd gone a little bit harder and maybe had a dive. Probably. I don't think about it too often. Probably every Thursday, I have a little night about diving and getting in. But, no, you're not a cricketer until you've made 99.
No, fair. Hey, touche. Neil, what do you think of our current SA cricket management team? That's from Mark LaRue.
Well, I think obviously. Mark LaRue. I think in terms of the management team, I think I'm a little bit biased. It's a lot of guys I played with in that sort of environment. So I think, I think the skill set's there, the knowledge is there. I think it's good strides. I think a guy like Graham Smith, as I said, we've chatted about him a little bit earlier, leading from the front. He's obviously a guy like Mark Boucher is a go-to man, gets things done. I think he did wonders with the Titans, was coach of the year. And then you've obviously got Jacques Callis doing some batting, Langerveld. These are all guys that I've played with and all guys that I really respect. So, the skill set, the knowledge is definitely there. Now it's just to enhance the guys going forward. With South Africa, we've always got talent. You look at everyone talks about us losing talent. We've got so much talent coming out of our ears in this country. I think it's just trying to enhance that, trying to sort of get the right sort of scope, the skill set, and trying to sort of push them all in the right direction. I think we've maybe been a little bit all over the show, a little bit, everyone, they talk about the talent drain or whatever it is, but there'll never be a talent drain in South Africa. We've got, you just go to you look at our facilities, you go to any primary school, you go everywhere in South Africa and you just look what's available. You look at the climate, you look at the role models, you look at, I'm a South African through and through. So there's always talent here and we'll share. We're not bad guys. We'll share with the rest of the world.
Neil, Senzo says, I've heard Neil is one of the more superstitious players. What do you say something you would have to order to put your mind at ease, to make you so what's something you'd have to do to make you at ease to play freely and comfortably with your superstitions? I remember you used to step over the crease. It was wild. Did you have underwear that you'd have to wear on a certain day? What was the story then?
Yeah, well, everyone says superstition. It's sort of OCD. I think if you ever see that movie As Good as It Gets and you see that guy washing his hands 10 times or putting his soap back, so I think I was a little bit on the OCD side. I think the kids sorted that out. But it was quite humorous for the rest of my teammates. And
the whole world.
Senzo,
we all used to laugh. No, sorry, not just your teammates, yeah.
Well, I think when you look back, I think the funny side of it is sort of, I never thought it really bothered me. I do things, every sports person's got rituals that they try and follow, sort of habits, just to try and get them. I mean, sport's about consistency, and you want consistency in all your performance. So by doing the same things over and over, you sort of getting that consistency back. One of the big things, walking out to Lords to save the test match, I was sponsored by Gun & Moore for many, many years, and I, obviously with the Moore, I put my pad on. I only saw 1-0. And sort of put the other pad on. I wasn't feeling that, great. We had to go survive 2 overs that night. Anyway, so got all padded up, and I decided now I'm going to have to take my pads off because I didn't like that 1-0 representing a little first baller or not getting off the mark here. So made sure I saw both noughts, and that's the 2 noughts signified 100. So in that test match, it obviously worked.
It worked out.
I kept the crowd waiting. I kept the crowd waiting, so I got booed on. Everyone thought we were sort of stalling sort of the equation, but they didn't know that the superstitions had kicked in quite hard. And I think, superstitions is just the way of controlling what you can't control. Big pressure situations, they kick in a little bit more. On the negative side of things, as a coach now, looking back and I see one of my players very fidgety or what I think is you can get a lot of perceptions. And I think a lot of coaches perceived me in a different light with the superstitions, thinking that I needed that crutch, that I was an insecure guy. And I've never been an insecure guy. But, it was the OCD kicking in. So if I knew now as a coach what I knew if I knew now, if I only knew it back then, I could see what was being portrayed. And, when there was a 50-50 decision on who was going to get left out or who had to come in, I think, I think the fidgety, superstitious guy normally probably lost out a couple more times.
No, the fidgety, handsome guy is going to get left out because no coach wants to be showed up by that rugged beard. Let me just tell you, we're going to take one more here. Neil, you've given us the whole evening before your lovely wife and family throttle you. Rikus says, it seems like McKenzie lost concentration when the part-timers came on after he made his debut ton. He lost his wicket to the medium bowling of Macmillan by hitting it straight to mid-off. And I remember that, by the way. That must have been sickening.
Well, again, you only look back on it now where I was thinking, geez, your first, can you imagine having your first test 100 as a 200? But getting 120, knowing the strife that I'd been in Sri Lanka for 3 test matches, I didn't even think about it. I think, Nicky Boyer and I, we batted ourselves out of proper issue there. But thanks for bringing it up. You guys are bringing up some great memories here.
Sure.
So that's another one. That's another one that I should have got 180 or 200. But yeah, you're right. I think as a cricketer, especially as a batsman, you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. So when the time is good and you're going well and you're on 120 in Port Elizabeth, and times have been tough in Sri Lanka, make it 180. Because 180 plus a few divided by that is more than 120.
Hey, there's that K's mathematics again. Hey, K's. Tuso, last one, says, Neil, are you ever going to join social media? Or
Sure.
So is it a case?
It's a tough one.
I think you're scared that your wife and your sister, you'll never catch up to them. And then it's a whole other thing. I mean, we've exposed a few of your other lowest moments. And then that's going to be another thing. So why is it you're not on social media?
You're right. Maybe I don't trust myself after a certain hour. I don't know. I think I've heard too many stories. I think I've got sort of Mike Sharman and Brian Abana, who's obviously running this. They got Retroactive. They've got this sort of match kit co. So they're trying to push me in that. It's for athletes. So maybe watch the space.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm going to be competing with my wife. I said she does all my social media. Well, she does enough social media for the two of us. So I don't know. If I want to speak to my mates, I'll pick up the phone or SMS my mates and chat.
Oh, I love it, Mac. Honestly, we could be here all night. It's been absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to have you back. You've always got a place here. Thank you so much for giving us so much time. And where can we expect to see you? I mean, that's my final question: is what's the goal? Bangladesh, of course, but let's aim high here. You've always been a high achiever and clearly somebody who's unbelievably driven. Mac, is coaching South Africa like the dream? What is the dream for a self-actualized Neil McKenzie in 10 years, hypothetically?
Yeah, well, I'm still sort of involved with Bangladesh, enjoying my role there. But definitely, as I said, I'm a South African through and through. I love South Africa. I love cricket, and I definitely want to be making an impact in the South African game. So there's a few sort of opportunities and potential opportunities that could arise in the next couple of weeks, months, or end of the year, or whenever it is. So I definitely see myself back in the South African fold in some format. But obviously with Bangladesh enjoying it at the moment and hopefully trying to sort of enhance their game and really take them to a competitive sort of nation outside their Bangladesh,
That's phenomenal. Hey, Neil, any news that comes
at the moment,
listen, any news that comes, you got to break it here. Your next move, you got to give me a call. And I want to break the news here. Neil McKenzie is officially the Proteas coach. McKenzie, world cricketer to ever live. Neil McKenzie, you are awesome.
Belila, thanks a lot for having me. That's been great. Thanks. It's nice chatting and nice to do something out of COVID at the moment. I think I think the Voddy's man of the match there the other day was Hoskins Sotutu, and he was saying that he trained pulling his car in his driveway the whole of COVID. Yeah. So when New Zealand were in lockdown, he had rigged his. So guys go to all lengths. There's a lot of hungry international cricketers out there and sportsmen out there. So it's great to see, and it's I think with all the negative stuff, I think we're going to get a lot of positive stuff out of it.
Coming. And what football team do you support, by the way? Before I let you go.
Well, I know you Chelsea, and I don't think you'll be competing with us. If I'll tell you just beat that side in the next couple of days, and we can lift the trophy. That's my team.
All right. Okay, this show's over. All right, Dave, cut him off. We're done. Neil McKenzie, you beautiful thing. Cannot wait. Thank you, Neil.
Enjoy.
Thanks, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil McKenzie. That was phenomenal. That is it for tonight. A different ball game. Folks, thank you for joining us. That was Neil McKenzie. Catch that full interview on A Different Ball Game, exclusive here on YouTube. Phenomenal stuff. Until tomorrow, A different ball game. We have an Olympian tomorrow. 2015, he beat cancer. 2016, he went to Rio and won a silver medal. A different ball game. Catch it tomorrow. It's been a pleasure.